Good morning, good morning. How are you? My Lavalier mic has packed up. God knows why. Have to look into that later. So apologies if the sound quality is not quite as good as it normally is. So, I hope you're well. I'm on my way to work, but I'm not going to do what you think. I'm going to... When I say it's a long story, I mean it's a very long story. It all begins when I was a child, and I used to collect stamps. My mother used to encourage me to collect stamps. She collected them. She collected a lot of things, my mother, including eggs made out of stone and porcelain and ceramics and stuff. She collected miniatures, whiskey and, miniature brandy bottles and stuff like that. I think on the basis that they thought it was, it was very sophisticated. Now, those are the heydays of the big alcohol manufacturers. The days when you can see it now still on YouTube if you tune into the old TV series at the time. Things like Hadley and what was that one about that solicitor? Anyway, every scene started off with someone coming into a room and then saying, would you like a drink? Would you like a drink? Everything. Not Rising Down, the thing that Leonard Roster did when he sold Grot. The rise and fall of Reginald Perrin. Everyone, come in, can I get you a drink? Can I get you a drink? And nowadays, the pendulum has swung the other way. Nobody drinks anything now. Alcohol is tantamount to being a Class A drug in the minds of Generation Z, or Gen Z, as they like to call themselves. So, I started collecting stamps. And when my mother died, I inherited the stamp collection, including a load of unfiled stamps because, bags of them. Excuse me. Enough to fill up a suitcase anyway, not a suitcase, a briefcase. And there they stayed from the age of about, I don't know, probably the last 40 years or so, 50 years or so. They've just stayed on the shelf. I've got some in the album, which I did when I was young, but most of them not. So, the time has come, I think, now that I'm 6'7", to put my affairs in order. Because you never know, as Ann Widdecombe said, what is around the corner. Some lunatic might drive 4 hours to beat me to death with a baseball bat. So, it's unlikely, but, it's unlikely in any event, isn't it? It's not a likely event. It's like winning the lottery in reverse. I've got to say that the Ann Widdecombe I knew, not that I knew her personally, I only knew her through her politics as a... my recollection of Ann Widdecombe was someone who only came into politics because she stood in Maidstone, which at the time was not really a conservative constituency, but then got elected in a landslide on the back of Margaret Thatcher winning the Falklands War, and so became an MP. But always an MP, I think, mindful that a majority could vanish overnight in the same way that it materialised overnight. And so she set about making sure she got herself to the forefront of public opinion, or public, how can I put it? She went after name recognition, So there wasn't, she used to, what they say, appear every time the refrigerator door opened, she would appear. And she realised that the best thing to do to get yourself to be notorious was to be outspoken. And so she was outspoken on a number of matters. In fact, she would be outspoken on your behalf, providing you could do her a bit of good in terms of getting her some media exposure or helping her politically. And so, as a result, she was chosen, I think, to be one of the people that was at the forefront of government policy on dentistry. And for those of you who are wondering why you can't have an NHS dentist at the moment, you need to look at Ann Widdecombe and various others around that time to see why, the Virginia Bottomleys of the world, to see why the service really changed from the comprehensive and reasonably high quality service that it was when I qualified in 81, 82, and has integrated into the, largely absent service that it is now. And she was part of that. She was part of the people that were wheeled out to say that patients wouldn't mind paying more towards the NHS to help the poor old NHS out, and that dentists were so rich that they could easily afford to run the service out of what they were paid in wages. And that fees, if we wanted fees to go up, then we needed to accept that our wages were too high and our wages needed to go down. So I have no fond memories of Ann Widdecombe at all. She reminded me of Groucho Marx, who said, I have strong opinions, and if you don't like them, well, I have others. And she adopted this philosophy and really, really ran with it. And it played out in many areas of her life, I think, in starting off, and owing her victory and initially being a true blue Tory and Thatcherite, to eventually, when there was no real mileage in that anymore, changing to the Reform Party. And in religion, she had a high-profile conversion to Catholicism, and at a time when, if somebody converted to Catholicism, it was big news. And I don't think she cared what she did. I don't think, and you'll see why I'm saying this, because later you'll hear now people saying, well, she had strong opinions, or she had strong views, but she wasn't always popular, or the people didn't always agree with her views. And the point was that she had these contrarian views because they gave her the publicity she craved. She was what we used to call a media whore. And in terms of her politics, I used to call her a rent-a-gob. Now, while this tactic was brazen, it wasn't exactly ineffective. She was, got so much exposure and was so rude to her opponents that she, just through her ability just to talk the hind legs off a donkey, she managed to win the argument through just force of verbosity most of the time, and was extremely came into an argument extremely prejudiced on one side and not at all open to listening to other opinions or anything. John Reed was like that, the old health secretary. When we said to him, when we told him we opposed what he was going to do on various things, he didn't bother listening to our arguments. He said, well, that's what you're paid to do, isn't it? That's what you're going to do. That's your job, effectively. It's just to... He saw politics as a sort of a combative, what's the word? just a confrontational thing where you've got two fighters going in. One's paid by someone, the other one's paid by someone else, and they're going to go in to have a fight. Whereas we treated it very much more as a intellectual pursuit. Our mistake, huge. We thought that politics had some remnants of honesty and decency, that it was possibly still a meritocracy, but how wrong we were. So she played her part, you know. She had more than 5 minutes of fame. When the fame in the later years waned a bit, she then went on to things like Strictly Come Dancing and The Jungle and stuff like that, where she had a lot of brand recognition at that point. But it was, you know, I don't know, was she doing it for the right reasons? I don't know. Perhaps she was just an entertainer who ended up, you know, started off in politics. But I think she did a lot of damage in politics before she gave it up, you know, sort of Edwina Currie type damage. And so I mean, okay, let me first of all say that whenever you're going to talk about someone who's died, and especially someone who's been murdered, you have to start off, you have to preface it by saying that you feel sympathy with their relatives and friends. And in this case, I'm not just saying that. I know the politicians all trot this out. They're all told to say, look, before you go on, they're going to ask you this question, blah, blah, blah. But first of all, just say, my sympathies go out to family and friends. And in this case, it's genuine. I am genuinely sympathetic for her family and friends. I think it's a ghastly thing to happen. I wouldn't want it to happen to anyone, not even my worst enemy. And she wasn't my worst enemy. She was a mistaken woman with what I would say had limited intellect, but a keen eye on the populist vote. And I'm not happy with how her life ended. I wouldn't be happy with anybody whose life ending like that. She was, as far as I was concerned, she'd done her damage. She'd retired to Cornwall, and you know, some of the stuff she was doing on behalf of the Reform Party are actually quite, you know, I think she at least made an attempt to explain to people why Farage is doing this standing down to be re-elected trick, which I think is a stroke of genius. I won't go into that at the moment, but I think he's in terms of political operators, I think he's right up there, Farage. I think he's wrong-footed everybody, rug-pulled everybody with this decision to impose upon himself the worst penalty that can be imposed upon him for these sort of semi-manufactured charges of accepting money from billionaires. And the whole hypocrisy of the opposition is exposed in not only in their joint effort in not standing against him, but in their Labour Party. That's lovely, all that. Look at all that straw. They've harvested all that. Do you know, I watched a video called Harry's Farm, just incidentally, and he's a farmer, obviously, and it's so funny because he's constantly complaining. The wind's blowing too much. It's raining too much. Raining. And now, believe it or not, he's actually complaining that it's too dry. He's saying that the wheat is so dry that they've got no problem with harvesting it. And this is unusual to have a harvest in July. It's usually August. But he said that the moisture in it is less than 5%. And so as a result, it doesn't weigh as much. Because when they sell it and get it weighed, he said if you've got like 100 tons of wheat, with a normal amount of moisture in it, compared to 100 tons of wheat with what's in it at the moment, which is practically nothing, you're going to lose £7,000 just on the weight. You're just not selling the mills the water. That just goes to show farmers can whinge. I never ever thought, when the weather was really bad, I thought Harry's going to be happy because he's always moaning about the rainfall, and now they've had the most glorious early harvest. Yeah, okay, well, fine, fair enough. If you want to sit there, you can sit there, I don't mind. So anyway, I'm talking about this hypocrisy of a Labour billionaire now has offered to fund Count Benface, who is the main candidate. There'll be other candidates standing against Farage. And Farage will win because the loony faction will split itself into 5. There'll be 5 loonies, and each will get 1/5 of the anti-Farage vote. But I can't praise Farage enough for the political intelligence that he's shown in really blindsiding the Uniparty on this, and we will find out, and people will realise down the line, and they're all, usual, the Chatteratis saying things like, Farage has made a massive mistake this time. Is this a bridge too far for Nigel Farage, etc., etc.? And then when they realise that actually no, it might be quite a smart thing, they then change to, could the bin win? Could we, if we whip up enough anti-Farage feeling and innuendo and sort of have a whispering campaign against him for accepting this money? We preempt the results of the inquiry, which are not really due till September. But could we get the electorate in Clacton to decide to troll Nigel Farage and the Reform Party and the country as a whole, and actually elect the bin? Well, I mean, they're getting desperate at this point. That is real desperation. That is real lack of political intelligence from the mainstream media that they've decided to take that. But it's not their whole strategy, but it's a main part of it. Here's me. I was out in the garden yesterday, knocking down a shed, and I've got a load of dust in my lungs. So, anyway, when someone dies, it's customary to say nice things about them. If you don't, then you're generally, people look down on you and say, well, and for an example, if you look at the what Christopher Hitchens said about Jerry Falwell, the sort of charlatan grifter who called himself Reverend and encouraged people to send him money in America, in the old Billy Graham way. And Hitchens came out after he died and said that he was sorry that a hell doesn't exist for Reverend Falwell to go to. Dear me, Mr. Cash Guy. Anyway, I'll let you get away with it because I'm totally chill. And a lot of the American chat show hosts just got him on just to say, can you not respect his family at this time? Can you not, just not speak ill of the dead? Is the saying, isn't it? Can you not find one thing good to say about him? And Hitchens, being Hitch, said no. You know, I don't feel sorry for his family who are going to come into a wad of money and have inherited his scam, basically. And, you know, unrepentantly. And so that's why I'm going to be unrepentant about Ann Widdecombe. What's happened is she's gone through 2 stages of beatification. She's gone from being Ann Widdecombe, who had no particular love of dentists, as could be seen from even a casual observation of her dentition, to Ann Widdecombe, the dead politician, whom everybody thought, oh yeah, she's a battle axe but funny, you know. They remember her on Dancing. They don't remember abolishing their dental service. They just remember her on Strictly Dancing. To you know, and the idea that somebody might have done her in has now elevated her to the status of Saint Anne of Maidstone, who was, you know, a wonderful woman and dedicated her life to public service and didn't hurt a fly, and was a very religious woman, and I mean, okay, let her. That's what the public wants to remember. Oh, that's how the press want to portray her. That's fine. But I'm just saying that that's not who she was. She was a grifter with who would change her opinion on the fly, depending on what she thought her best interests were, and did very well as a result. But you know, she shouldn't have died like that. But that's not a tear I was wiping out of my eye there. That was a bit of dust. Right. So this no doubt will get more than 10 views, because it's going to be on the subject of Ann Widdecombe. And I dare say I'll have the police round, accusing me of terror-related tweets or whatever. But I'm at work now, and they're not going to come and get me until I post this online, which won't be till later. So I can relax, at least for a couple of hours. All right. Nice to talk to you. Bye.